know, and there's maybe some new faces. And we're basically busy with a year program of looking how we can optimize our brain health. Now, many of us sort of just experience in our own mind that we're really okay. You know, so many people think our sleep maybe, I don't sleep too bad, or whatever case may be, but we're going to really go quite into depth today to see how can we optimize sleep. It's a lot like taking your car to one of those fancy people that zoom up your car. They put in nitric acid, oxide or whatever inside of it, and before the time you thought your car could really go, So, so my design passion is that all of us should really upgrade our view of how to look after our brains. My passion is for everybody on earth, if one can go so far, is to really do that. And for me, the very first part of looking after your brain is your sleep. So it's always an interesting part. Where do you want to start with your health? A lot of people will say, I think I'm going to start exercising or eating healthily or whatever the case may be. But in my view, that's why I named it the fountain of youth is sleep, and we'll get into why that is the case. So for me, the first thought that one has regarding sleep would be to give it rank. So most of us give sleep maybe corporal, maybe there's a few sergeants, maybe a lieutenant, perhaps a captain or so. But the question is it part of your generals, the thing that you really give priority? Or sleep, whatever is left over of your day, you just climb into bed and you can sleep, in a sense. So I really want to challenge all of us to upgrade how we view our sleep, until it's really got a high rank. So why do we sleep a third of our life away? You can see I put that in little brackets. A lot of people think, so I see a lot of CEO people may think if you can only maybe sleep 5 hours or even 3 hours, why waste the whole day, So that's a lot of people's view. There's obviously the obvious ones that we all know about, and we desire that. You want vitality, you want energy, you don't want to be grumpy, your mood, you want to be high, you want to be able to focus through your whole day and do well at your sports. So we all agree upon that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We want that. That's what we want, in a sense. But the less obvious reasons why we have to sleep is that 20% of all fatal head-on-head collisions are secondary to drowsy people. So 1 out of 5. That's high, if you think of that. If you think of work-related injuries, you think of people making wrong decisions, fights breaking out in relationships, just some of the basic introductory thoughts regarding sleep. We think about children growing, we think of healing infections, head injuries, we think of sport recovery. So if you do gym, but you don't recover during the night, sleep well, you'll never, ever reach your optimal health. So if you maybe sleep 5 hours, but you want to become a top athlete, you'll never reach it, because it's during sleep that your recovery happens. But if we go forwards, if we look at any chronic illnesses, from migraines to epilepsy, if you skip 1 night of sleep, your chance of having insulin resistance the next day skyrockets. If you think of obesity, if you think of weight loss, if you think of cancer, if you think of, we'll get to that later, Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, epilepsy patients, fibromyalgia patients, arthritis patients. So I'm not going to go into depth, that's not what we're doing here. Depression, anxiety, psychosis, confusions, every single one of them is related to sleep, and we'll go into that, but it's not my focus for today, but it's to bring that forward. So when it comes to the brain, why do we want to sleep well? First thing is memory consolidation. So during the day you've picked up a lot of things that you want to remember, but at night it's when it's taken from a very short term to the long term. So that's one of the reasons why if you do exams you must always have a very good night rest. You mustn't sort of stay up and study through the night. So that's one of the reasons. Secondly, you need your optimal focus, concentration, and using your brain is secondary to sleep. But now there's a new thought, the glymphatic system. I'm wondering how many people have heard of a glymphatic system. You've heard of a lymphatic system, but in your brain you've got the glymphatic system. So you need 4 to 6 cycles of sleep for your brain to really clean itself up. So there's a lot of byproducts in the brain. The brain uses 20 to 25% of all the energy. So you can imagine how in 2% organ, how much metabolic products are there in the brain itself. So the glymphatic system, during the night when you sleep, your normal cells shrink, that's 50% of your capacity of the brain, and your helper cells and the SS fluid floods through the brain to clean up the brain. So all the unnecessary toxins, all the extra things that are on the brain gets cleaned up. And also the amyloid production. So you've got at least 10% higher increase of amyloid formation, which is linked to Alzheimer's dementia if you don't sleep well or enough. So the cleaning system of the brain is really an essential part. So the cleaning system is at least 10 times more active when you sleep. And we're not saying 5 hours sleep. And we'll get into later on how much you need to sleep. So that's one of the big reasons we need to do that. Now, one of my passions, and we can't go too much into this slide, it's a very busy slide, but one of my passions are the mitochondria. Now, the mitochondria is 10% of your weight. Do you even know the word mitochondria? Yes. You know, so it's an organelle inside your cells, but it's 10% of your weight. You know, there's a massive amount of them. Some cells have got 2,000 of them. It's one of the only organelles that's got their own separate DNA system that's inside of it. So a big part of your metabolism zooms in onto this little organelle, if you can call it this. Your skin has got basically nothing about, but your brain has got massive amounts and your heart's got massive amounts. Why? Because that's every single part of your body that needs energy. Gets 90% of its energy from this little guy. Yeah. Now, depending on how you treat it, by breathing, exercising, what you eat, this organelle is either going to have a clean work and much less bad guy stuff coming from it, or the opposite of it. Now, if you sleep, you're going to need, that's where a lot of the refreshing and relaxing of this guy comes from. It's like having a car, but you don't drive 24 hours a day. So at night your car's in the garage and everything settles out and all that. The next day you use it again. But if you skimp on your sleep, then this extremely important organelle starts to deteriorate and causes a lot of havoc in your brain, which a lot of people feel that's where a lot of the degenerative brain diseases comes from, is this guy. So a big part of your sleeping is to have this guy to be happy. So I'm not going to go in detail. We're going to do, over the next 10 months, we're going to go really deep into what's all at hand with this little guy, because I believe even how we eat must be focused on this. How you breathe must be focused on this. Why you exercise, the type of exercise you do should be to focus on this guy. So while you breathe, all oxygen, where does it go to? To this guy, so that you can have energy. You know, the food you eat, where does it go to? It goes to this guy. You know, so it's very important for us to understand that sleep is not just happening and I have to get it over with to start a busy day. It's really one of the important reasons that this guy can really burn cleaner and get rid of all the extra things that are formed in our oxidation process. So we'll get more into that. So it's called even the Garden of Eden organelle. You know, so every action, function, growth, repair, thought, and experience requires energy. So everything that you do. So mitochondria themselves produces the energy. They signal, they help with cell death, cell growth, cell differentiation. So it's a massive important part in your brain. A lot of people are shifting the idea while people develop Alzheimer's to this guy. Okay, so you'll see that later when we get into nutrition, why a lot of people do nutritional ketosis, as an example, is because healthy fats burn much better in this mitochondria than, example, sugar or glucose will be. But that's for another part of our talk some other time. So even Star Wars, the relative force on midi-chlorians they spoke about comes from a loose depiction of mitochondria. So it's interesting how far, George Lucas was thinking ahead. He's actually using mitochondria as a source, a base of a force of Star Wars. So how do we give rank to sleep? So a lot of people think you have to motivate somebody, but we're here to motivate somebody. I'm not at all a motivational speaker. Okay, I'm not. Okay, I'm an immerser into truths. That's what I am. So for me, most people really are more comfortable with just being comfortable. So very few people are really into discipline. You might be into discipline in the army, perhaps, etc. Where it is, but when it comes to our brain health, there's going to be a phase called discipline. You see, but you cannot jump into discipline unless you've immersed yourself into why do you need that. We'll come back to that as well. So Dr. Maltz was a plastic surgeon in the 50s, and when he did nose operations or amputations and so on, he saw sort of an interesting thing that after about 3 weeks, people were sort of more comfortable with the nose operation they had, as an example. And he had sort of this thing. Obviously, it's not a magical number. It's probably not. It's not just 20. It's not, and 22. It's already too deep in. But sort of somewhat, that's where he saw the principle of you need to sort of immerse yourself at least for this 21 days into something for pathways to go. So the old thing we use is that neurons that fire together, wire together. So if you just do something casually, by the time you sleep, what's one of the functions of sleeping? Is pruning. So your support cells goes in at night and prunes off all things that doesn't seem to be part of your normal habits, and prunes it away. So you wake up, it's gone. You know? So unless you do it over and over and over again, then after a while it doesn't get pruned. Okay. So that's all that. But so first step is to immerse yourself. Immerse yourself into what? Now, in my view, I've read many books on sleep. In my view, this guy, Sleep Smarter by Sean Stevenson, is really the guy I would recommend to immerse yourself into. He's got a funny humor, so don't forget his humor. You know, he's an interesting guy, but he's really excellent in explaining a huge amount of these things. So I would really advocate work it through, you know, to get yourself some of the things. So first immersion, so 21 days, you really get into the truths of any matter. What doesn't matter what it is. Say, an example, you want to go to the gym. Don't first go to the gym. For 21 days, read up about gym. Read up that after 10 days, you can actually measure, if you haven't exercised, that the blood flow to your hippocampus, which is your memory area, diminishes. 10 days. You know, if you haven't exercised for 10 days, you can measure the decrease. Read up on these things. After 21 days, something happens within you that makes you ready to come to a decision. Do I? Or don't I? You know? So as we said last time, if you become 85 years old or older, you've got 1/3 chance of developing Alzheimer's. It's a lot. So 1 out of 3 people reaching 85 plus. So there's really a big thing in your mind to consider. Why do we look after brain? But that's just from a negative point of view. There's obviously huge other reasons. So after deciding, you have to make a plan. You can't just approach your brain health. But you have to commit to a disciplined program. It takes then about 2 to 8 months to go over from what you think you should be doing to actually doing it without thinking. Okay, so that's give or take 2 to 8 months. Some people a bit quicker, some a bit slower. But the change then is your motivation. So I don't believe to be a motivational speaker. I believe that I immerse you into truths. You continue immersing yourself. You come to a place of decision, and then there's a discipline involved. You know, we'll see as we see there's a lot of discipline. And then the reward in your body is your reward for yourself. You know, so I don't give you rewards. Okay, so that's important. So basically, the first step is to determine how much sleep time you need at night. Now, I want you guys to open yourself up because we've all got preconceived ideas. You know, we all say, "I'll really sleep okay. I have no problems with my sleep," or whatever it comes to me, you know. But we have to relook at what is really necessary for sleep. So that's a quantity part. So the first principle of deciding how much time you need is to consider the law of averages and then stay within the boundaries. So this comes from a National Sleep Foundation chart of America, which they recommend. So if you're 65 up, the law of averages says you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If you're 6 to 13, the law of averages says 9 to 11 hours that you need. But then on the side you'll see an example. If you're 18 to 25, it can differ from 6 hours to 11 hours. So how many people think they're actually 11-hour people? That's not a lot of people. Maybe some do. But can you see, so your first step is to say, let me start off saying, let me at least try that law of averages. The average person, 18 to 25, sleep 7 to 9 hours. So I need to be maybe see where I find myself. So that's the first principle when you look at that. Second is that you must remember we need 4 to 6 cycles of 90 minutes each. So when you plan your sleep, doesn't it make sense to think of 6 hours, 7.5 hours, or 9 hours? You know, so don't plan, I think I'm going to sleep 8 hours and 50 minutes. Okay? Because it works. It's 90 minutes and you need 4 to 6 cycles. So if you've got too little time left, rather aim for 6 hours. Don't aim to get in 6 hours and 45 minutes. Okay? Because it works 90-minute cycles. Okay? You have to include how long you've got to fall asleep, isn't it? So if you take 30 minutes, you know, you have to add 7.5 plus 30. That's where 8 hours come from. But if you fall asleep in 2 minutes, then it's obviously slightly different. So keep that in mind. That's sort of your other 6 hour sleeper, 7.5 hour sleeper, or 9 hour sleeper. That's sort of just practicality. The third principle is that the greatest restorative part of your sleep is actually between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock. So a lot of people falsely believe there is such thing as morning people and owl people. Okay, light people. But if you think of it, still we've had all these lights. How many people were night owls? You know, people say, I'm a night owl, you know, the person logs in a fire and I'm just sitting here till 12 o'clock, you know, I'm a night owl, you know. It wasn't like that. Just a lot of it is really a learned behavior. I've changed myself from being somebody that sleep at 11:30, 12. I've changed myself and I've done it. Just like that. I always viewed myself for 48 years as a night owl. You just change it, you know, but it takes a while to change it. So very least you need to spend 75% of your time asleep during those times, because that's when your restorative energy comes. Now, the second principle is your body releases energy around 10 o'clock, give or take, for your restoration of the body during sleep. Now, a lot of people use that energy to do what? To work, to stay awake, so you get your second breath. Oh, jolly good, 10 o'clock is here, I'm up, but I'm going to go forward. Isn't that what you do? But using your energy to restore your body to be awake. Okay, so there's really no proof that there are really night owls in a healthy sort of system. I'm not speaking of people that's got illnesses or whatever the case may be. So you have to sort of reconsider this, and that's where the challenge comes in, because we all view ourselves, you know, I'm a 12 o'clock sleep and that's my best I do, you know. But you're missing 2 hours of restorative sleep. So you can probably still make it 11 o'clock, you know, give or take, but probably not after 11. Fourth principle, you cannot decide how long you sleep by what your work demands, isn't it? You know, I often figure, you don't know my work, you know. My personality, I'm sort of just an eager beaver, I want to get on. I can get away with 5 hours, I feel very strong. You know, if I sleep 3 hours, I feel the most brightest I've ever felt, 3 hours. Honestly, I'm hypomanic at 3 hours. You know, I don't really need to sleep more than 3 hours. You know, I'm not sure how long I'll hold, but that doesn't count for anything. That doesn't count what I think I can do. Also habit, I've always slept this way. That's not really the right thing. You know, we can do many habits that doesn't work. So you have to review yourself and say, do I sleep the right length? And do I sleep 75% of the time between 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock? That's maximal restoration, recovery of your brain cells, maximum balancing of your hormones, maximum balancing of all your brain chemicals. That's the time of it. So if you sleep 1 o'clock and you still sleep 8 hours, that doesn't cut it. You'll probably get 60% of the strength. So that doesn't help so much, you know. So rethink of that part. So that's maybe a challenge. The first challenge maybe of the night. So the second step, the first step is how long should one sleep? And that sometimes take a few weeks or even months to work out. Sometimes it's good to wait for a holiday time to sort of try and work out where should I do it and all that. But you have to labor to see where do I fit in. But the second step, that's a really deeper part, is the quality part of our sleep. So even if you're sleeping 8 hours a night, and even if you feel I'm somewhat okay, you know, if you don't do the quality aspects of it, your brain won't clean itself as it should be cleaning. And the chemicals won't build up as it should be building up. So we'll get into that. So it's not just 10 tips, you go out here, what's the 10 tips? You know? That's what you like, huh? So it's not like that, no. So how do you know if you have got a good enough sleep? So in psychology we speak of a good enough mother, and a good enough father, and a good enough worker. You know, so a good enough sleeper. So how do you know if you're a good enough sleeper? First of all, you fall asleep within 15 to 20 minutes. Some people say, wow, that's a bit long, but nonetheless that's what the people say. It becomes an illness if it's longer than 30 minutes. So that's why they say get up. If you're still awake after 30 minutes, don't lie in your bed, you know. But that's it. So the first thing, you fall asleep within a reasonable time. Some people it's 5 minutes, some 10 minutes, some 2 minutes, but give or take in this. Second thing is, do you regularly sleep 7 to 9 hours, you know, in a 24 hours? And are 75% of the time between 10 and 2. So that's sort of a second clue that you can have. Third one is, do you have continuous sleep? I mean, obviously you might be aware of turning around and grabbing a cushion or just doing this, and that's okay. That doesn't count for any problems. But you're probably allowed once, maybe a 5-minute awake at night. You know, but anything more than that should be not seen as a normal sleep in general, unless you've got a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old. That's normal. Fourth thing is, you wake up feeling refreshed. I mean, if you wake up and you don't feel refreshed, there's really something wrong. It's not normal. Okay, believe me, it's not normal to wake up, wow, I wish I could. And something's wrong. So either your time is wrong, or your quality of sleep is wrong, or you've got an illness or something is wrong if you don't wake up refreshed and rejuvenated. Fifthly, you feel alert during the whole day, except maybe just around after lunch. You can feel a little bit down, that's normal. Postprandial hypoglycemia, as the sugar falls, so that's okay. That's why you shouldn't eat sugar close to your mealtime, because during the night sugar can also fall, waking you up. And the sixth one is, your partner says you don't stop breathing during the night, sleep apnea, anything like that. That's important one. No? So you need all those six to say, give or take, I'm a good enough sleeper. So first habit, are you getting ready for first habit? Okay. So first one is, you have to link your mind with the word adenosine. Have you ever heard of adenosine? Yeah. Okay, very good. I like that. A lot of nodding here, so it's a good crowd to be in front of. So the first step is a set routine. So your brain needs to know exactly, I'm going to sleep at this time and I get up at that time. Now, what's one of our biggest challenges? Because of emotional needs and burnout, We take our weekends to do what? To sleep in. Now, if you need to sleep in, where does the problem lie? Emotionally, and burnout, and overwork. You know, so, because you should not, if you feel extremely good getting up, why would you want to sleep more? Isn't it? I mean, but we all somewhat do it somewhere. You know, Saturday we sleep an hour in, or 2 hours. But that throws out your whole system of your sleep. So one of the very first rules is to say from now on, and it's a tough one, it's not an easy one, I get up always at this time. I don't change it. There can be slight exceptions if you've had some crisis that kept you to 2 o'clock at night. But generally speaking, you have to say, sure, I'm ready to get up exactly the same time, holidays included. Why? Because I feel refreshed. So only if you don't feel refreshed would you consider sleeping longer, isn't it? So it's a difficult one. I can see you guys, I'm not fighting so on this one, but it's nonetheless, it's still the truth if you want to get a habit. It takes about, as we said, a few weeks and months to really get the correct habit. Then you have to, when you go at night to your bedroom, choose within 15 minutes to 30 minutes the same time. So if I'm saying I'm going to be asleep 10 o'clock, then I mustn't be longer than 30 minutes away from my night one. So that also goes without saying. Secondly, thirdly, fourthly, somewhere, you mustn't press the snooze button. Do you like the snooze button? That's one of our favorites. Huh? Why shouldn't we press the snooze button? Because you've got 4 phases in the non-REM sleep, and then you've got obviously your REM sleep. So now you press it, where do you fall again? Back into the next phases. No. So when you wake up, whoa, I'm now in the next, I haven't got my 90 minutes. I feel, and I press again, snooze, oh, and I lie again. And so when you keep on getting on into it, it's like a Groundhog Day. You sort of go over and over and over into the same thing. It doesn't make sense. We do it, but it's something to in a sense, to speak to yourself to say, I need this habit, I need to overcome this thing. It's not a normal thing, because you can actually measure people's on tests that do that. And they don't do so well. 10% or 20% less in tests. But they do it as an example. You know, so it's a thing that you take for granted, I'm still okay. But that's very important. So
sorry, should your snooze button then be 90 minutes?
No, 100%. Yeah, you 100% right. So your boss might sort of be, unless you're a boss, might be uncomfortable, but I agree. 90 minutes. Good point. The other thing is, you have to set your alarm that you awake with your alarm, or even a little bit before the alarm. Okay, because you don't want to be in your deepest sleep and then the alarm goes off. I mean, that's not good. Okay, so trial and error has to put you, where's the best time actually for my alarm to sort of go off, you know. So you always have to consider taking kids to school and all those sort of factors as well. But it's a difficult one, but that's where the growth comes in the habits. So it's called process S, or homeostatic sleep. So basically the this is what I spoke about, this one here, that's what it's called, the routine one. So the byproducts of your cellular metabolism builds up over time, and that's adenosine that builds up. So there's been about, say, 18 hours past of build up of adenosine when you feel tired. So that feeling of feeling just tired, you know, comes from this build up of adenosine. So that's why it's important to have a regular sleep, because then the amount of build up will be exactly the same. That takes you to bed, in a sense. But now that's why we use coffee, isn't it? So what does coffee do? Okay. It inhibits the release of adenosine. Okay. So the reason why you enjoy coffee is because it competes a little bit with the landing strips for adenosine. So when you don't sort of have all this sort of release and build up of adenosine, and therefore you feel sort of less sleepy, you know. And that way, a lot of coffee drinkers would just say, I give you my word, it doesn't affect my sleep. It doesn't. You know, I can drink a coffee right just before my bed, and there's a lot of studies done, it's not the truth. It affects your quality of your sleep. So who knows, except those that are told, how long does, if you drink 100 grams of coffee at 2 o'clock, how much grams will be left at 10 o'clock at night? And many people, 50 grams. Okay, so the half-life is 5 hours to 8 hours. So if you've drank your coffee 2 o'clock, wow, at night 10 o'clock, half of it is still in your body. And many people say, people a little bit less. Okay, so that's a lot. If you stop drinking coffee now, how long does it take before it's out of your body? 3 days. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So we always think sort of somewhat an innocent practice, and then we all enjoy our little bit of caffeine. But remember, when it comes to sleep, it affects absolutely your sleep quality, even if you do sleep 8 hours. Okay, so keep in mind. So we don't advocate after 2 o'clock. That's for normal sleepers. So people that struggle with sleep, we're not even speaking about. Okay, so they don't have to have coffee. Maybe they do in the morning, one cup. So we said it's half-life. Yeah.
Sorry, doctor. Can I just say tea has a lot of caffeine?
That's right, very good point. So to tea as well, I didn't mention that as well. So tea definitely as well, unless you use Rooibos or whatever the case may be. It's a very good point. And some of the other things in Coca-Cola are absolutely very good points. We mustn't just be bashers of coffee. So there's bashing all the caffeine.
All the caffeine.
I like that. So basically, in a sense, you have to consider your caffeine habit regarding your sleep. Not because you think you're not sleeping well. Of course, we can prove by many studies that even if you sleep your 8 hours and you think you sleep well, you've given up something of that. Okay. So that's an important one. So habit 2. So first habit is really set your time right. Get your time right. The second habit for quality is a good night's sleep depends on your process C, which is circadian sleep drive. Now, there's basically 3 things to think of: cortisol, serotonin, and melatonin. So most people think of melatonin, isn't it? So people ask, let me drink some melatonin at night, 2 hours before the time, using our slow release, 2 milligrams. What does the package insert say of melatonin? For who? Above 55? 3 weeks. That's it. That's what they say. Okay? It's a new prescription. Kids can't have it. There's many reasons why they can't have it. But 3 weeks, that's it. So, and above 55. So it's interesting thinking maybe some jet lag people, etc., etc. But generally speaking, not for the average guy. Why? Because once you start using melatonin as a tablet, your own production of melatonin changes. Okay, so that's a very important one. So you can use it if you really need to for short periods, give yourself a bit of a break, use it again, but you can't use it continuously. There's exceptions. There are some familial disorders, etc., etc., but I'm not going to go into that. But generally speaking, we don't do that. But now what's important is that you have to start thinking of these 3 guys from your startup. Okay? So your very first opening breathing time, has to be focused on this. Now I'm more recently changing into this. So this is something you grow into. You don't just one day do all of this. So I've been doing sleep now for a long while, and I'm now getting into this and I'm believing it. This is really true. So the way that you sleep at night starts how you start your day. So that's very, very important. You can't just work a full day, get in bed and sort of just try to sort of land the day and climb into your bed and hope for the best, We all do that. But you can't do that. You have to sort of consider a couple of factors. So what about cortisol? So cortisol often has got a bad rap, isn't it? People say this is a bad guy. We've got some good guys and then we've got cortisol, Cortisol isn't a bad guy. Take your cortisol away and see what happens with you. Okay? So cortisol is really your daytime, let me get going, get moving, hormone, if you can call it this way. But what is important, 50% of your cortisol is produced in the first 15 minutes of waking up. 50%, okay? So what does that tell you, okay? So you have to grab a hold of the first 30 minutes of getting up to spike your cortisol, because you need the opposites of each other. So you need melatonin as you wake up to be low and cortisol to be really high within 30 minutes. So it's not just lazy getting up and relaxing a bit in the morning, it's really getting my cortisol up. So it's called activating the cortisol. So you need a certain regime. Now what activates, what have I been doing now for a while, and my family sometimes frowns upon my special new habits, is that within 30 minutes I go outside into the sun. Okay, so you need to be in the sun. What does sun do to melatonin? It drops it. Okay, and now in the sun I start doing what I call nitric acid dropping exercises. So it's fast, quick movements where I get my nitric acid out in my arteries to get loose from the sides, to get into my bloodstream, so that then goes through my whole body, awakens a huge part of my heart, my organs, because of nitric oxide opens up the arteries. So I do that, I activate my heart, I activate cortisol. So if I do the first 30 minutes, my 10 minutes exercise. So I do, as I get up, the very first thing I do my 20 push-ups, okay? I do planking a little bit, and I do my nitric oxide exercises, and I do it outside. Now if you incorporate with that, without your shoes, you're doing a concept called grounding. Have you ever heard of grounding? Yes. My son called me a sangoma when I saw me walking in the garden without my shoes. I told him there's lots of scientific facts. There's even a big book written about that, because your body is a magnetic field, and if you walk with shoes all the time, the whole day, there's not this sort of discharge of you as a magnetic person. I mean, you've got a huge amount of electricity inside of you. So what happens to it? How do you get released from that electricity? So one of them is saying is a lot of people believe that we should really be in the ground. So a lot of farmers, an example, that's been coming to the city, really need to know the first thing you need to do is take your shoes off, be in the ground. Spend a lot of time in the ground. Our kids should be in the ground. Besides for the gut flora that you need to get, don't wash your hands so much. We'll get to that in some of our other talks. But so can you see the mindset? So when I get up in the mornings, I activate myself. And it's a massive difference. I think I get 40% more energy by activating myself. I do deep breathing exercises. There's specific ones we'll speak about where I go in deeply and I just put 90% out, so like divers would do. So I over-oxygenate myself. I do my exercises. I do my grounding outside in the sunlight, because between 6 o'clock and 8:30 in the morning, your brain absorbs the lights coming in a very different way, which you cannot get up in any other time. So your brain then aligns itself with the circadian rhythm. So can you see, you can't just try to get sleep in and a bit of melatonin at night. And a lot of people say, dang, this double. So my chronic insomnia find no help. They said to the doctor, I've had my melatonin, makes no difference. And rightly, it wouldn't make any difference, you know. So it's important to look at this, but don't just jump in and do everything here. It's impossible. But you have to grow in understanding what is a healthy sleep pattern. And it makes a massive difference to get your cortisol right up in that way. Then at night, you need your cortisol to be very low. So what do? We Facebooking. Is that helpful?
No.
We're on computers. We watch TVs, murders. How many murders are in a night on the TV? Yeah? And you think, man, I'm kind of concerned. That's just actors, and you see that's not real blood, but all that. But what happens to your cortisol levels? When it stays high, you see. And never mind what you've done during the day with your cortisol levels. My good colleague, esteemed colleague, will speak a little bit about stress and sleep, which is a massive factor with sleep. But you need to be aware of cortisol, you know, during the day. We haven't even touched melatonin, you know, in that way. So cortisol is really important. If you don't look after cortisol, how do you feel? Tired and wired. Have you ever felt tired and wired? So then you can know what's the problem. Melatonin is low and cortisol is high. That's tired and wired. And where did it start? When you woke up. That's where it started, not going to bed, okay? So maybe a lot of new thoughts, but generally speaking, that's an important concept. So melatonin must be high, cortisol low, and reverse during the day. And serotonin, I'm not going to speak much about that now, we'll get into deeper, but why is 90 to 95% of serotonin in the gut? Have you asked yourself that? Why is it not in the brain? Okay, so it's interesting. Yeah. No, it's got an effect on the gut, right? Absolutely. But it's very interesting. So if you think of it, I like that. I like the answer up. It's good. So it's very interesting thought. Why is it in your gut? And what is it to do? Why there? You know. So you have to consider these matters when you eat. Why is serotonin in my gut? You know. Why? If you think of it with the wiring, you've got enough electricity in your gut to equal your spinal cord nerves. Should you know that? And you can do simple maths with all the nerves you've got in your gut, if they wanted to, but they don't want to. Okay, so that if they wanted to. So the gut is really that's why people probably say my gut feeling or whatever the case may be, but it's a really important concept to understand. Later on when we get to food, we have to understand serotonin. But now, what's the link between serotonin and melatonin? Can you have melatonin without serotonin? You need serotonin to make melatonin. Can you see that? So our depressed patients, do they sleep well? So it's important. Can you see the interaction in your thinking about all these things when it comes to sleep? But again, it's sunlight, so there's receptors in your eyes that deal with serotonin. There's receptors in your skin. So where do depressed patients like to be in the sunlight outside? You know, often not. You know, for many reasons. You know, some I'm sure would do, but often people like more be in your bedroom or in the house, whatever it can be. But sunlight is what you need. Get out in the sun. But when? First 30 minutes. Of waking up, not later on, of waking up. So melatonin, so if you look at the sunlight, 30,000 units to 100,000 units of lux comes from the sun, okay? And the moon is 1 lux on the other side, but these lights are 250, 500 lux, okay? So what do we get? We don't get the sunlight, but we always get this in between 250, 500 sort of lighting, okay? So it's very important to understand, even if your skin if you're in an airplane, why do you struggle to sleep in an airplane besides all the other obvious things? If you've got a little goodie on, your arm is sticking out. And your skin can pick up, it's still light. Okay? So you have to be really later on in darkness when you sleep. Total darkness. So again, between 6:30 and 8:30 in the morning, you have to be in the light so that your brain can see that. And after I start opening up my blinds at work, which I've never done before. You know, maybe even my secretary probably I haven't closed it again. And one of the reasons is that you lose 46 minutes if you're in office work without windows per night. You know, so after that, I usually just keep it when I'm opening it up to get sunlight during the day in, you know. But now the important thing comes, that's really for young people, it's extremely complicated. 60 to 90 minutes, some people even say longer, but let's keep it 60 minutes before you go to bed. You must have no blue light or strong light in your eyes. So the normal spectrum is blue and red, other way around, red. So red, blue is the sharpest one. So what do the Japanese clever guys do? They say, let's make TV screens that people can actually see crisply. So the more affluent you are, the better blue light you've got in your house. Okay? You can go past people's houses and look at blue light coming out of their houses. Do an experiment tonight. Take a normal smartphone without blue light filters and put the lights off and put it on your face and stand there and see how you look, with the blue light. So now we've got all these blue lights coming in massively. So what are the three problems with cell phones for people in a sense? First of all, you've got the blue light that comes in and keeps you absolutely awake. You need to, my alarm goes off 9 o'clock, then I switch all my stuff off. 9 o'clock. No TV, no cell phones, no computers, nothing. Okay? And it's that difficult for a lot of people, right? Because you're addicted to your phones, like many people are. We'll get into the addiction part of it. So that's a blue light. What does the light do to your eyes? You'll get glaucoma, it's much more easier, you'll deterioration of your eyes. So let's not even get into those sort of things. But what does it do to your brain? It wakes up your brain. Okay? What is melatonin? It's an antioxidant. So your brain is protected by melatonin. Okay, but now you throw down your melatonin. What happens to your brain? So this is not something where you start. This is later on. This you have to start. This is really one of the most serious illnesses that we have. Is this blue light getting into our eyes? Now you can get a program called f.lux, which you put on your computer, and it's for free. It follows the sun, so that's a good thing to put on. And you can get a blue light filter for your phone, and at night you can put it on 80%. Some people in America, like a lot of actors, are getting glasses of blue light. They just put it on as soon as the sun goes down. It's maybe I'm not there yet, okay? But the idea is, this is really not a happy place for us to be in the time of our life, is with this thing. Then the radiation of our phones is a massive thing with mitochondria. If you start studying mitochondria and the effect of cell phones on mitochondria, not on your other health, don't start there, do studies. I'll give you all the studies from World Health Organization, studies where don't publish. I can give you all of that. It's not a complicated thing on your mitochondria. Okay, so we have to be very serious that your cell phone has to be very far from you. We'll get to that. So in your room, if I'm on call, so I can't put it outside. I'll put it away from you as far as here from the door. But if you're not on call, put it in another room. Your cell phone. Put the Wi-Fi off as soon as you can at 9 o'clock. Off. Your child's brain's development depends on that. Your child's your sleeping pattern development on that. So you must really be, and 5G is coming out, which is even more worse, So you have to sort of look at these things. But where do you start? You're addicted to the dopamine release that your cell phone starts. Okay, so that's really, I'm not going to go into that. We don't have time, I think, as we go, still a lot to cover. So sleep shift workers that work through the night, sisters included, is now a group 2A carcinogen to be a shift worker during the night. Okay, so let's take that as an example for people. So if you, what's the most you should do is 2 months shift work, 10 months not shift work. If you're excited about your brain, if you believe in your brain, that's it. Anything more than that, you're really getting a horse that is complicated to navigate. So in practice, we need much light. We need all the things we spoke about, the hour before the time, etc. And you need to sleep in absolute darkness. We're still upgrading towards that. You need to sleep in absolute darkness. We'll get back to that. Habit 3 is plan your day, both for what? Work, rest, and sleep. So how do we usually plan our day? Work. So you need to plan, where am I going to rest this day? And how am I going to sleep tonight? You need to plan those things. I'm not going to go in detail. We're going to cover stress in detail one of the other months. But you have to really look at stress during the day for sleep. You can't be in an activated state, get home, and then expect to climb into your bed. So exercise, why is exercise important? Because if you do it wrongly, so what's the best times to exercise? That first, early in the morning, as I've said, the first 30 minutes of waking up, or 4:30. But for sleep, it doesn't help you much just to exercise at 1 o'clock, which I exercise. I can't exercise over time at 1 o'clock, but my sleep is not helpful. Because you take about 6 hours for your core to cool down again. So you need actually then at 4:30 as you cool down to be in your bed, or in the morning to activate your cortisol. So those are the 2 important parts to do. If you're a big fan of exercise, you need to sleep well to knit everything together. So you don't actually grow in the gym, you know that, right?
No.
You tear everything in the gym. and you fix everything at night while you sleep, and that's why you grow bigger, in a sense. So alcohol again, alcohol helps you to fall asleep, isn't it? You know, old maybe days in somebody's youth somewhere, not anybody here. So you fall asleep, but it throws your REM sleep out. So your second half, you really pay a big price if you use alcohol even close to bed. Now, what's the problem with wine, and we'll get into the toxin part on another time, is that unless you've got organic wine, you're getting with every single glass of wine you drink every night, what in? All your roundups and your poisons and your things every single night. Okay? So think of even drinking one glass of wine is not good for the brain, basically, unless it's organic, isn't it? I mean, follow that through the thought of it, but that's another story. Huh? So habit 4 is again, as I said, 60 to 90 minutes before sleeping, your alarm goes off on your phone. It has to go off to remind you, otherwise you'll never remember that. Okay? Then no electronics and TV time zone. And it's a harsh thing for us. We live in a world where what do we do? A lot of people ask me, what do I do? And I ask, have you decided maybe to talk to somebody? Maybe because we sit here, and what do I speak about? It's not my job to tell you, but speaking is a good thing to do, you know. So try that a bit if you struggle. So put your Wi-Fi off, put your TV off, put your electronics off, take your phone far away from you. Remember your bed, if it's got any iron in, springs, it amplifies all your signals. Does it make sense to put your phone right next to your bed? What happens? It goes into your springs and amplifies it to your height. Okay, so that's proven. That's not a problem. Worst case scenario, use an 80% filter. If you really don't believe me, just rather just use an 80% filter. Don't try something else. So understanding that you're addicted is really the first helpful thing. That's why you probably don't want to do an hour, because you're addicted to cell phone. Because what happens? There's dopamine release, which is your hunter molecule. What's around the next corner? What's somebody else saying? What's happening in bed? What about that thing? And once you start there, you end up on YouTube. But, and we all know that's the truth, isn't it? So why do we not just go in and say, okay, I want to look at what friends are happening, get out of it, and just, why can't we do that? Because, you know, switch off your message alerts. Don't wait, okay, what's happening here? What's happening here? You know? Yes?
What about reading?
Reading on your phone.
Reading books?
Yeah, books, absolutely. That's an excellent one. Absolutely. Reading books. It's a lost art, but it's an important one. And then, as we said, we've said all the other things. So, habit 5 is teaching yourself how to switch from an activated state to a quiet state. So, from a fighting, flight or fight mode to a rest and digest mode. So, sympathetic activated to parasympathetic. So you have to be able to intentionally switch. And you've seen a lot of movies where people do the sort of the what's it called? Thing for truth, polygraph, yeah. And the sort of a guy, sort of a spy, that sits where he keeps his pulse 50. And they say, did you go there? 50. You know, did you do that? No, 50. Is your name John? 50. You know. So this sort of, so they control someone seems these things, but we also have to be able to switch. So how do we do it? Deep breathing exercises. I'm not going to go in detail into that. You can do interesting, some people do ball rolling. Have you heard of that? In your stomach. Why would you do that, do you think? Your 10th nerve is a parasympathetic nerve. It goes into your gut. And if you put a ball and you squish your little organs, they send up input back to your brain. So 90% of the torque of your 10th nerve is up, 10% is down. So now you stretch them and stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system. There's also acupressure and acumassage in certain areas where you can massage some of your nerve regions, and you can do that. You can do progressive muscle relaxation. My friend might give us some sense of that. We wrap our babies tight. You know, they don't, you know, it makes them calm. Or some youngsters are sort of screaming, you hold them a bit until they relax. So that's helpful. There's a lot of reading books, as my beloved son said, speaking, warm baths. When should you bath? Not closer to an hour and a quarter before you go to bed. So as you bath, as you cool down, you're ready to sleep. And obviously, you can only listen to good music. You can't listen to other music, you know. So that also goes. So habit 6 is your room. Okay, so your room must only be for sleep and romance. Nothing else. Okay. So it's not for your TV. So you must go now and chuck your TV out into bed. Especially if it's a blue TV. Throw it out. You know? Not for your Facebooking. Not one single in your room. Nothing. It's not for the worst. They speak of worst sleep crime in the books I read. I like it, a sleep crime. Have you ever committed a sleep crime? You should do your work in your bed. You know, that's the worst thing you can do. So all those things must be chucked out of your room. Really, not later, soon. When your room must be pitch dark, it's a difficult one. I'm still building up. And I've got double things, but still, my neighbour's got an thing climbing over wall lights, and they're still penetrating. But I need to get black things, you know. So you need to be in black, pitch black, dark, pitch black, not a red light flashing from your alarm.
Yeah.
It's really how it should be. And we don't believe that, because all our rooms are, you can even look at kids, you can look at studies for eyesight for kids. So somebody that sleeps on with the lights on, so I think it's 58% wear glasses by the time wherever they are. And if you put a little bit of night light on, it goes down to 36%, so I'll speak under correction. If you put no light on, 10% wear glasses. Interesting, isn't it? I mean, this purely glasses, your eyesight and light when you sleep. So your room should be a sanctuary, and it should be a place of habit. Now, so how many of you brush your teeth in the kitchen? Would you feel comfortable doing that? But you can clean it up perfectly, there's no problem, isn't it? I mean, you can clean it up, you know, because of habit. You wouldn't want to break that habit, you know. So you need to make your room a place of not coming in, what's my options? Okay, entertainment. Okay, sure, I'm going to entertain myself in this room. No, it's sleep. So your brain needs to form after a few months, this is my place of sleep. Not my place of wrestling of emotions, okay, that place of sleep. So you need to build a strong neural relationship with your sleep. You can also look at a lot of things like, that's why you sleep better at the sea, because in your room there's also moving ions, you know, inside your room. Plants, how many people think you can put plants in your room?
No.
I haven't really, but NASA says number one filtering plant is an English ivy. So you can actually sort of consider putting plants, you know, in your room. Yeah, so what type of light should you have in your room? Like this? No, you should go to what spectrum? To the red spectrum, eh? So that's with candlelights or Malayan salt lamps. So can you see this completely different view of how I should be sleeping, quality sleep, you know, in that way. Hey? So what should your room temperature be? 20. Maximum 20 degrees. Okay, so we put it up to 25 when we go to conferences, isn't it? We get this, I don't know, aircon at home, you just go to sleep nice and warm. But it should be 20 degrees, so that's one of the biggest predictor of sleeping well is your temperature. Did you know that? So you can 75% predict if somebody's not going to sleep well, and if somebody can't sleep well, if you get the temperature, core temperature down, 75% chance they'll sleep better. Just temperature. Why? Because the HPA axis, which is your stress axis, heats you. Okay, so when you're on your bed, so it's not only your stressful thinking, it's this axis that's awakened, that heats your body up. Okay, so now you're lying in your bed, so if you can cool yourself, they put cooler caps on people, don't know how it works, but just cool the head down, and then people do better. You know, so it's interesting, but therefore you have to look, you don't overdress yourself, don't put too mega stuff on top of you, don't put a warm blanket underneath yourself. All those things are not good for sleep. It's good for comfort, but not good for, it's like eating KFC, it's comfort food. So that's one thing. When your bed and mattress need to be changed every 7 years, not 15 years when they say on the label, 15 years or 20 years or 25 if you're a student, you know, every 7 years. 25% of the thickness within 2 years drops if you buy a new mattress. And then you must buy untreated mattresses. You know that, eh? Especially if you're pregnant, 1 or 4 pregnant. Don't treat your couches with anti-whatever stuff. You get all those special stuff inside, like your pots and pans. And we'll speak about those pots and pans, which are easy to clean. All those things, the pots. Teflon. Teflon is toxic. But the same thing, bed, mattresses. People take a bed mattress and treat it. Buy untreated bed mattresses. It's very important. So again, there's a lot of thing about infant mattresses triples the risk of crib deaths, reused ones. You know, there's many things to say about that. You know, you can look at the New Zealand studies where they put wrap baby mattresses in inexpensive non-toxic protective covers and they've top rates, etc. It's not said about what happens in your mattress. I can't go into detail, but look after your mattress. Sleeping positions, can't go into detail, but you've got the fetus, the log, the yearner, the soldier, the free faller, the starfish. Who's starfishes? You've got a starfish here. So every one of them got pros and cons. What's your best position, do you think? Besides the one that you like? You know, on the side. So some people say it's the best to be on the side, in a sense. So, so you can look at different positions, help for snoring, help for back. You know, you just look at where you fit in. We don't have time to explore all these sort of factors. And habit 7 is controlling your airspace, your thinking. Okay, so do you struggle with thinking in your bed? Yeah, if you do, hey, sometimes we lie on our bed and we start thinking things. So what is the number one thing I do when I lie on my bed? I've got a whole repertoire of fantasy things I've taught myself over 30 years. Do you believe that? So why do we teach read fantasy books for our children? Does it help them to sleep? Absolutely. So you take them from the real world to the play world of sleep. Maybe it's also a real world. So I've got things like islands that I build. I've got massive islands I build. Like Smurf villages, you know that type of stuff. So I build islands, and I do build the same island over and over at night. And I've got, if I see something interesting, I just put it into my fantasy world. So I use that to transition from my active daylight to my sleep, because it's fantasy. So if I use that, then my brain doesn't think anything else. So that works perfectly. If I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning, I actually enjoy my stories very much. I'm a good storyteller in the middle of the night. So that's one thing. But there's many other things that people do. One is you have to teach yourself to sit quietly and to look at your breathing. So a lot of people believe your thinking follows your breathing. Why? Because you've got a gland called the amygdala we spoke about last time. And the amygdala is linked to your breathing. So if you get your breathing right, your mind will follow. So if you're anxious, what do? You breathe fast. And if you want to relax, you breathe slow. So that's one thing my colleague will help us a little bit with that. But then you have to practice your flow of thought to appreciate what you've got in the now, rather than your depressed past, if you've got such a one. I'm not sure if you've got, maybe you've got a happy past. So at the back, or your uncertain future. So that's what people often worry about in your bed, whether the past or the future. So you have to bring it into the now. So you have to practice to appreciate the now, like a chef would. A chef smells the stuff, feels the texture of it, throws things together. So there's an experiencing of it now that helps you to pull your minds away from everything as well. And then there's a whole thing of tensing your muscles, relaxing it, feeling the tension go out. So there's all these programs my friend will speak about. I'm going to go, there's much we can speak about, but let me maybe go a little bit quicker. So habit 8 is food, gut and supplements. So food is what? Information. Do you know that? It's not just taste, it's information. So it brings information inside of your body. So again, your serotonin, we said, is a very important part of your whole system. So you need to be keeping in your mind, how do I eat for serotonin? How do I eat for gut health? So if you add antibiotic, how long does it take for your gut to fix itself? 6 months to a year. So if your gut to be back and happy again. If you're on anti-inflammatories, what happens? Think again. If you drink sweeteners, which actually, by the way, increases your weight, etc., so it doesn't help you. It kills it as well. So we can go on about how to think. But now all that is related to sleep. Why? Because as our dear young man said, that serotonin is in your gut. And what you eat makes a massive difference for that. I'm going to go a bit quicker than that. So there's a lot of foods that we can get into that really helps our sleep. And so first of all, you have to get away from all the top parts that I've said, chlorinated water, sodas, sugars. You have to get away from that for your sleep. But then you need real food. So it's not the same to drink 500 milligrams vitamin C and having it in an orange. You know that?
Yeah.
So you know that. So the packaging of vitamin C is completely different than this packaging. So whatever you drink here is not the same as here. But now with our poor ground source, whatever we get here is probably not good. We need real food. And there's a lot of things like selenium, tryptophan, all those things you can look at. You need to get more in if you want to sleep better. I don't have time to go in. Potassium, vitamin D3, omega, melatonin, B6, probiotics, all these things which I don't have time to develop now, but which I'll do much more when you do our nutrition part. It's important to have a good night's sleep. So you can see, you can't just eat your burgers, do this, and think it plays no role in your life, So supplements, a lot of people want supplements are really not the first place to start. You only use the only thing I use is magnesium spray. Okay, so because drinking magnesium is not well absorbed in your stomach. So even if you drink Sloma, whatever the case may be, it's not so well absorbed. So I use magnesium spray just before I go to bed. Put it everywhere, it stings a little bit, and then you sleep much better with it. But you also get your magnesium in. How many enzyme processes does magnesium deal with? Between 300 and 350. Very good, huh? I like that. So you can think of how many people are deficient in America at least of magnesium? 80%. Okay. So does it help to draw your blood alone to see if you're magnesium? No. So most people, 80% of people need magnesium. But how many forms do you get? Many. What's the best form for a brain? Magnesium threonate, which is complicated to get hold of, except maybe through my friend that side. So that's the best one for going over the brain. But for sleep, is this a topical one at night. So that's the one that I use every single night of my life. But there's many other things. Valerian root is probably my second favorite one that one can use. Chamomile tea, all the other things one can also use. You can take a photo of it, or you can sort of consider that, but that's probably part of one can use for sleep. I don't value it too high, except for magnesium in general. I think if you do all the other stuff, you probably wouldn't need so much of this stuff. So we're landing our ship. So habit 9 is what I call activating your day. And we've spoken a little bit about that. So, but to activate your day is just as important to have a good night rest. So to get up, 1, 2, 3, up. But then you have to infuse yourself with a good thought. You know, I'm going to exercise today. You know, so as you get up, infuse yourself. And then you do these things. They say jump out of your bed. I'm not sure that's helpful. You know, if you've got arthritis, then you can do that. I do my 20 push-ups. That's helpful, I think. I go outside in the sun, as I said. I do my exercise. I also do what I call, when I do my Bible reading, I do walking. You know, so to focus your mind, you get some energy used up as well. Then I come in, have my coffee, and start my morning rituals as I go on. But have an activating ritual as one goes on. So my colleague is going to give us a few minutes just on stress and sleep. Mike Weber. Thanks.
Right, I'm just going to take a few minutes of your time to talk about stress and the effects on sleep. Probably more than 80% of the patients that come to my practice that complain about poor sleep have poor sleep because of stress and anxiety. Less than 20% are because of medication side effects, brain damage, depression. 20%, small amount. 80%, had a person in my room this morning complaining she's had 4 hours sleep in the last 2 days because she's stressing about her nuclear family, her extended family, her friends, and she lies in bed at night ruminating about all of these things and then can't sleep. This is not to scare you about anxiety. Anxiety is actually not in and of itself a bad thing. Freud said that there are no forms of psychopathology, just normal human emotions. Just some people, unfortunately, have them in greater measure than others. So anxiety is actually quite good in limited quantities. It keeps you sharp. All the stuff that Dr. Pierce is telling you to do in the mornings, it's all about sympathetic nervous system arousal. Gets the adrenaline, the cortisol going. You want to be awake. You want to be sharp. You want to be focused. You do not want to inadvertently step out in front of a speeding NiCity bus. So these things keep you sharp. It's part about survival, but you don't want it into the night. So from a historical viewpoint, anxiety was a good thing. It ensured our species survival. Unfortunately, along the way, we know that anxious parents tend to beget anxious children. And only the anxious parents 5,000 years ago lived long enough to actually have children. And then they passed the anxious genes on to their children. 5,000 years later, here we are, a totally stressed nation, a species. And we stress. Now, habit number 5, what Dr. van der Merwe was talking about there is, we have this thing called autonomic sympathetic nervous system arousal. So when your brain perceives something as a threat, it communicates with the hypothalamus, which communicates with the pituitary gland, which communicates with the adrenal gland, and says, guys, you know, there's a crisis going on somewhere here. You need to be aware, prepared, ready, fight or flight. The problem is that your system doesn't understand that half the time the fight is in your brain. It's actually a cognitive event. You're thinking. And so what can you do to address that? So 80% of the patients come to see me are stressed. They're suffering from elevated levels of anxiety. And we engage in things like cognitive behavioral therapy to change the way they think. We address their maladaptive and irrational thought processes to try and get them to deal with their stress different, develop their resilience. We tell them about sleep hygiene, the Sleep Smarter book. So we engage at a cognitive level trying to do a bit of psychoeducation. We teach them about mindful meditation practices, how to just calm down the system, how to get the parasympathetic nervous system arousal going so they're calmer. What I'm going to try and do in the next few minutes, and I haven't done any nice slides like this, because I want to give you a practical example. Here's something practical. To help you to reduce your physical sensation of stress and the cortisol and the adrenaline, you only need 3 things. Are there any amputees in the audience here? Not. Good, great. So you've all got 2 hands. You need 2 hands and a brain. And I'm going to counter some terrible advice I was given as a child. My mother always said to me, when you walk, stand up straight, head up, shoulders back, chest out, stomach in. Man, that's an awful idea for breathing. Like, it's almost deformed. So, to calm yourself down, your breathing rates are important. Because as you get stressed out, as your sympathetic nervous system starts getting going, it communicates to your systems through the endocrine system. And one of the things we start doing is we start breathing shallow, and we breathe rapidly. It's a very, very ineffective way of breathing. And your heart rate, your pulse rate, and your breathing rates are connected. It's probably common knowledge here. If your heart stops, your breathing stops. It's a thing called cor pulmonale. And so effectively, your heart and your breathing rates are connected. And then you are aware of your somatic symptoms, and then you get more stressed because now you can feel all this somatic tension and these symptoms. And you need to turn that process backwards, reverse it. And all you need to do that is you need to take one hand and put it on your chest. One hand on your stomach. When you breathe, your chest hand should not move. And yet this is what we do all day, we pant. We're at this like rapid state of arousal, and we pant, and we don't use our diaphragms. We don't breathe properly. There are psychologists here in Cape Town who actually run half-day workshops for people on to teach them how to breathe. We've lost the art of breathing. Everyone thinks it comes naturally, we just do it. No, we don't, we're doing it all wrong. Because when you breathe with your diaphragm, you're breathing deeply. And when you breathe with your diaphragm, your little book bend extends and contracts, and extends and contracts. So all we're trying to do is encourage diaphragmatic breathing, deeper, controlled, regulated breathing. And you focus on your breathing. So with your hand on your chest, which should not move when you're breathing, your hand on your stomach should move. So every time you breathe in, you should breathe through your stomach. Your abdominal muscles should become distended. And then as you inhale, they come back in again, because as your diaphragm drops, it's compressing all your internal organs, and there's not too much space in there. Believe me, 2 weeks ago I spent a couple of hours in theatre watching bariatric surgery, and it's actually quite crowded down here in your abdomen. There's not much space. So when your diaphragm drops, there isn't this like clear space that it can move up and down freely. There's a whole bunch of things like your stomach and your intestines and your liver all crammed up underneath there. So you've got to focus on this. And there's another thing to focus on is how you breathe. You don't need to worry so much about your inhalation. You worry about the exhalation. So all you need to do is inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for a second or two, and then you exhale. The Buddhists have been doing this for the last 2,500 years. They've got this mantra, Om Ha Hum. And the Om is inhale, Ha is the whole part, and Hum is the relaxation, the exhalation. So 4-minute inhalation and a 7-second exhalation. So it's really just regulating the exhalation, trying to keep it going for 7 seconds, and then inhale again. There are some parts of literature which say that you can actually take it a step further and close one nostril while you're doing it. How anyone in Cape Town at this time of the year can do that, I have no idea, because they're trying to breathe underwater. With the wind, the hay fever, the pollen, the dust, and all the rest of it going on, it's like, no, I'm drowning, I can't do it. But basically, you can inhale and exhale through your mouth, that's okay. They say inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And what you find is if you do that for 3 or 4 minutes, it starts to calm you down. As you focus on your breathing and regulate your breathing, your pulse rate starts to go down. And as your pulse rate goes down, your sympathetic nervous system arousal goes down. You're stimulating parasympathetic nervous system arousal. And you're calming down, literally, just by focusing on your breathing. There's a secondary benefit, which I found, is as people are focusing on their breathing there, you try and interrupt them like, no, don't bug me now, I'm trying to focus on this 4-second, 7-second thing. Because what they're doing is they're so focused on that, they become oblivious to the world around them. So all the stresses and the worries that are going on in their minds, this rumination, stops for the period they're focusing on their breathing, because they're so intent, it's almost like a breathing meditation. So they're so focused on the breathing, they withdraw into that world of just focusing, even on the end of their nose. Just focus on the end of the nose. What does your breath feel like? Is it cold, warm? What's the air temperature? Can you smell anything? Furnishings, carpets, everything. And they become so focused on that, they start to calm down, because they're switching off to the external stimuli, and they're reducing their breathing rate, they're reducing their pulse rate, and they're calming down. 7 years of psychology training. Find out. And I can explain it here in like 3 or 4 minutes. And it's profound. You think, well, no, there must be more to that. There's got to be a catch. It can't be that simple. And yet it is that simple. We don't have to overcomplicate. You don't need to come see me for 20 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy to figure this out. That's all it takes. 2 hands. One's allowed to move, one's not. Inhale 4 seconds, exhale 7 seconds. Do that for a couple of minutes. Try it for yourself when you go home. And actually monitor your pulse rate and your levels of arousal. How anxious do you feel? How much agitation do you feel around your shoulders, your neck, all the places around our shoulder girdle where we normally hunch up. You find your shoulders start to drop and you start to relax. That's all there is to it. It's simple. You can read books on it. Most of the books, in fact, there's one book that I lend out to quite a couple of my patients. It's called The Dummy's Guide to Stress Management. It's actually a great book. People think the Dummy's Guides are Mickey Mouse, but this is written by a professor with a PhD in cognitive behavioral therapy in the States. And one of the big issues in the book is breathing. Just breathe. Learn to breathe. That's all it takes. Simple, isn't it? Try that when you go home. You might be surprised.
And it's very interesting if you can actually measure what it does. It's really scientific. It's not just some sort of pie in the sky thinking somebody sitting under the tree thinking this is a good idea. It's your amygdala that if you breathe right, it switches on the whole fight and flight mechanism. So we're going to really land our ship. So again, as I said, I'm not a motivational speaker, so I hope you're not motivated. No, I'm joking. No, so rather if you're motivated. But the more important thing is immerse yourself, meaning you take responsibility for the immersion, and really get that book. You know, it's a really very helpful book. Read up on it for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and make a decision. Do I want to change anything? And believe me, I've been changing things. You can ask my wife for the past long while. Adding something here, adding something there, and I think that's how we grow. We really grow a new and healthy brain. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for tonight?
So, sorry, if you have worked night shift for 20 years, you're busted.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic, you know, so I don't want to go in, but I think it means that you have to super duper look after your brain even more than your friend has to look after her brain even more than other people should, because of the effects of it. And yeah, so I don't want to go, it's a sensitive topic if you do that. Some people have no choice, and so I don't want to sort of belabor the point too much, but basically it's not healthy for the brain. But some people, sometimes we do things because we've got no choice. But if you do that, you have to have a super focus on, like an example, your room at your house should be super dark. You know, if you do night shift, there shouldn't be one teensy bit of light coming in. Would be one of the things I would advise. You know, so for Christmas we should each go if it's over night. You know, dark blinds and good gifts to give. Okay.
Okay, I picked up on the slide there that you're not supposed to read in your bedroom.
Yeah. I know it's a controversial thing. People feel sometimes relaxed, and it's a tough one for me as well, because I don't see myself as a problematic sleeper. You know, and because I'm not a problematic sleeper, I tend to say it's okay for me to do that. But I think when it comes to forming a brain pathway, that your brain needs to associate something absolutely with one thing, it's helpful to do that. Now, I think one grows into that, so I think there's a time we grow into deciding that I want to go the next step with that. So for some people that's got no problems in it, and you read sort of a normal book, initially it's probably okay, but I think when it comes to forming neural pathways of behavior, a lot of people would say the first prize is that, although I don't feel it's one of the worst things you can do. You know,
Well, I think it depends what you're reading. You know, if you're reading something really stimulating, exciting, thrilling,
Good point.
you're getting the whole sympathetic nervous system arousal going again. If you're reading something that puts you to sleep, it's fine. If it's that boring, it's great.
No, you're right. You know, so if you read your Moss and Boons, it's probably okay. Anybody else? You know, it's a lot of information. So don't see it that I'm doing every single thing like this. I really think I'm growing into it, but I've really gave sleep rank. That's what I've done. But for me, it's a general. You know, previously it was probably just sergeant, maybe. You know, so I've done that. I'm really growing into more good habits, and I can honestly tell you, I really feel very strong. My days are. I can even work a bit more now. I've really got a lot of energy, which is one of the things is that I really sleep well. You know, so.
So can you watch Game of Thrones until 9:15 and then go to bed and then you'll be okay?
If you've got our space, it's not first prize, but nonetheless, you know, the idea would be that if you can switch, if you're a good switcher, okay, can I use that? Then I'm sure it's okay. But if you're a bad switcher and you're in an excited state and you're tired and lying in your bed, so I think the proof is probably in the pudding. If you can switch off and you can sleep, it's probably okay.
I mean, many of us are living in close quarters to complexes and things to other people. So, I mean, how helpful is it for us to switch our Wi-Fi off when I've got neighbours in every direction that probably have theirs on?
I think, I'm not sure how far, if you can get your neighbour's Wi-Fi on you, you could probably sort of get yours, you know. So we probably have to get Faraday cages to really be safe, I'm sure. But that's a very good point. I'm not sure how to get away. That's why a lot of people, when they go away for a week in a Wi-Fi free, in a phone-free place in the mountains, don't you sleep better?
Yeah.
If you sort of somewhere there?
Line our walls with foil or something.
Foil and eggshells. No, but it's a good point, huh?
Is it okay to use white noise to help you fall asleep?
Some people advocate that, and you'll get a lot of sites that do that. I generally speaking, don't advocate that. I'm never for or against it. I think some people do find it for tinnitus or any other reason to do that. I think generally speaking, one probably would want to slowly outgrow that. But again, I don't think it's something that I would be against. In that, so there are people that even speak of pink noise, isn't it? I think they speak of pink noise. I've read some of my special books. But most people don't sort of advocate it superly. But I do know people have this special sort of things. I also don't like so much the app that you put on because your skin can see the light. So if you've got a thing flashing on your skin, they put even behind somebody's here a light, and they closed down. They did a lot of tests on melatonin. Just put one single light behind the knee, dropped your melatonin. So I'm not sure how helpful it is to actually measure your sleep and drop your melatonin at the same time, and then try and measure. But I think now and then there's room for all these things. And not as our front row Springbok team type of scenario. Okay, so that's a long example. Any other questions? Yeah.
What about if you covered in your body and so you covered your whole body except for just your eyes, but they've got like that blue light cover and there's lights. Will it still affect?
I think it will be better because when your body can't see any light, so your melatonin will definitely be higher. So I think that's probably already getting closer to the goal.
That's what your brother does.
Yeah, so I think the young guys will come around with one, I'm sure.
He puts himself under his blankets.
That's a heavy one. But I think start of self-harm addiction, all of us.
Yeah.
And this on growth as well, you know. So an example would be if you go up a lift, it's not a good idea to use your cell phone. It's not a good idea to have your cell phone in your pocket. It's not a good idea to have your laptop on your your squirt. You know, it's not a good. You know, you have to consider that this real active waves really influences your mitochondria. You know, so this thing, especially young people, important. So, yeah, 100% right. 100% right, because it's sort of like a microwave in your car. You're 100% right. Yeah. And we're going to do a lot of. I'm still going to do a talk on all the toxic things. You excited? All the fish full of plastic, and we're going to do all the special stuff, your foil around your food, and we're going to get into excited stuff. Then we'll touch this point a little bit again. So, Lord willing, then in a month's time, we can make it, we're going to do two things. We're going to look at the fourth stage of water, EZ water, have you heard of that? So you've got the normal stages, but there's your metabolic state of water is now seeing these books written about that, EZ water. So we're going to speak a little bit about that part. We're going to speak about other aspects of water, what's healthy about water, what water is healthy, can we drink tap water, is bottled water okay, We're going to speak about that part, but we're also going to do exercise, what type of exercises, and I'll get somebody maybe that's a good exerciser to give 10-minute talk on high intensity intermittent interval training. We'll do that, and we'll look at the brain's effect on that, because I think exercising is probably, so after general one, so we've got general sleep, but we need general exercise. So we'll also do that. Any other questions? No, you're welcome to ask anything, I don't mind.
I just want to know about the coffee.
Yeah.
Can you have one cup of coffee?
Definitely, if you don't have problems of sleeping, okay, then definitely you can work it out probably till 2 o'clock is probably a fair place to drink it. So I've changed my own ways by, an example, stopping milk and sugar. And when I found I actually enjoyed coffee often for the sugar. So previously, before I stopped my sugar, I enjoyed about 6 cups of coffee and I enjoyed it. Now I still enjoy my coffee, but I only drink 2 or 3. And because there's no sugar in it to pull me. So, but generally speaking, drinking 1 cup, 2 cups, I'm sure is okay. It's even good for your brain, you know that. So caffeine is actually good for your brain. It's not a bad guy thing, but keeping you awake after 2 is probably not good. Yeah. So I think we just need to, if you guys who can consider coming maybe next month who can come, just put your signature again, so that if you can't come, then I can put somebody else in that part. Anything else from your side? I think my wife's got the form. It's in front. Yeah. Always, the wife's got it always.
One more something quickly.
Yeah.
I was reading an article about superfoods.
Yeah.
Like blueberries,
Yes.
So I'm into using, those
Yes.
smoothies now.
Yeah.
And is it true that ground coffee they've discovered, small parts, not 10 cups, is also a superfood?
It's definitely so. You must make sure it's mold free. So one of the challenges we've got with coffee is that it's sometimes not mold free. So you have to make sure that what you're getting is not the cheapest ones where it's become old and they sell it half price. You sometimes buy half price beans, so the reason it's a half price is because they're getting older now. So just make sure it's not moldy, because mold is one of the things I'm going to speak about as well. But generally speaking, there's no doubt caffeine is good for you. Even nicotine. If you take all the bad kind of stuff around nicotine, so all young people close your ears. If you just look at that, it's also not bad for the brain. There's all the gases and funny stuff that's around it. So a lot of stuff is not bad, but you have to keep it in mind when to use it. Thanks, guys. And so we speak, Lord willing, then in a month's time. But I'll phone you guys to know you what then. So it's basically EZ Water. If you haven't heard of that, exciting news. EZ Water, and then we'll do some good exercises. So I'm even going to exercise harder than my shape can even be. See you guys.
Form is there by you.
Form is here.
People can just come to the front and put it.